Find us on Facebook, email us at head2headpinball@gmail.com, or go to our website at head2headpinball.com. Welcome everybody to the Head2Head Pinball Podcast, episode number 43, and my name's Martin, and with me
Ryan C. with another special guest, Marty.
Have we really got another guest?
Yeah, this is a big one, Marty.
Is it?
He has worked for the likes of Harley Davidson, the Foo Fighters, Metallica, Adidas, Charlie Sheen, the Coke Snorter himself, Microsoft, Stern Pinball, and most importantly, your mum, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Zombie Yeti himself, Jeremy Packer.
How are you, Jeremy?
How you going, Jeremy?
Hello, good morning, or good evening for you guys. But yeah, I'm doing well, and yourselves?
I'm doing good, Marty. How are you?
It's not going to be quite up to the standard of our New Year's episode, but you know, I've had a good night.
Well, that's good. Between that and the fact that I'm barely awake, I think we'll even out somewhere in between.
We're probably both feeling the same at the moment, both slurring our words.
Are you a Plants vs. Zombies fan? Is that where your name Zombie Yeti came from?
No, as a matter of fact, I had that coined before that game came out. Now, what's interesting though is I think the first official year that I was using it, I think it was like that summer or something when that game came out, and everyone was like, "Oh, no, fuck you." Anyway, so here's the short of it is this. I did not do illustration when I got out. I went to art school. I was a fine arts major, and then I watched all these people graduating, working at gas stations, and I said, I don't know about this. I think I need to find something else. So I switched majors and was time-based media, which was film and animation, and which is where my focus was. As a matter of fact, my portfolio out of college was actually all traditional and 3D animation stuff. And needless to say, I met my wife in college and we got married. And by the way, I'm trying to make this short. I got a job working, actually, because I was kind of a technically inclined nerd also. I applied for a job at a toy company, Resource Toys. They used to make video game toys, which is wonderful because I love video games and I love toys. And they actually at the time wanted to do online sales, and that was, before Amazon had more than one row of tabs. So it was the early years. And long story compressed very shortly, ended up working in that department and sort of helping them create an online store, which then got leveraged into its own business. And I did like Hershey's first online store and all this other crap. And I did that for years. And I was creative director for a few different software companies. And then I guess it's been about 7 or 8 years ago, an old friend of mine from middle school, who is actually a professional now, does a lot of stuff with Nike and Lucasfilm and stuff like that. He goes by Hydro 74. His name's Joshua Smith. And he was like, man, are you, I look for your work all the time. Are you doing comics? Are you doing this, that, the other? And I'm like, well, no, I haven't done, jack shit. And he's like, well, why? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I got sidetracked, I had a family and all this other stuff. And so he
Life
kind of encouraged. Yeah, exactly. So he kind of encouraged me to start, picking up a pencil again. And it had been like 10 years since I'd, really drawn anything. And what I found was, in that 10 years, all that growing up that I did in other avenues actually helped me quite a bit with the illustration stuff. Like, I sort of approach things a lot differently than I used to. And it was advantageous and it was good. And he hired me to do a few things here and there and helped push me. And then I'm like, hey, how come all these jackasses have these weird names that are out here in this art world? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, okay. So my wife, because I after hours was working on this, illustration stuff, my wife sort of inadvertently coined it because I sort of walked around like a zombie. And I'm a tall guy, and I was not shaving regularly out of pure laziness. And so it sort of just all kind of came natural from there. And Zombie Yeti was sort of born out of that as a joke, I might add. Now, it kind of worked out in the end, only because it's such a stupid name. And Jeremy Packer is an even worse name. Nobody likes that. Three syllables? Nobody likes saying 3 syllables.
Well, if you're in Australia, it'd be called Jezza, Marty? Jezza?
Jezza! J-bomb, the J-train.
Is that what Jezza is? Is that's Jeremy? Or is I don't know.
Jez. We call you Jez. Yeah. Jez.
Oh, interesting.
Jez, mate.
Oh, nice.
So obviously you've been doing art for a very long time, and we're going to get on to probably all the machines that you've done, and you've got quite a distinct style. Has that always been the case, or did you sort of just grow into that over time? My styles evolved, but I've always had kind of a distinct style, which I have a lot of people ask me, like, well, how do you create a style? Like, I have a lot of young kids. By the way, these young kids nowadays, they think software and hardware is going to make them artists. And here's the key. People who actually know what they're doing, like on paper and on a canvas, can leverage the tools that are out there and make amazing stuff. If you don't have the fundamentals, kids, the software and hardware is just going to hurt your pocketbook. Anyway, that's my lesson. Well, then, what would you say has made you a great artist? And look, you are a great artist. So what do you think has been your secret? Well, you are. The fact that I don't think I'm a great artist, because for one thing, I'm not a competitive guy. Like, I grew up in northern Indiana, which, by the way, if you're tall, actually, if you're not tall, if you're in Indiana, you're supposed to play, like, sports, and in particular basketball. Well, so I was always the tallest kid in my class, and I have no coordination. Like, as a kid, like, I was awful at all sports. So I learned very early on not to be competitive, because there was no way I was going to win. So I leveraged that in my art career, and it was always just sort of I would set goals for, like, every time I drew something, it's like, no, that's still not quite what I'm seeing in my head, type of thing. So I just always try to do something better than the last time, which is, you drive yourself nuts. But again, I would say my biggest asset is I don't think I'm a great artist. But were you one of these guys that was, like, drawing during school? Like, was it always something that you were really interested in?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, my parents have wonderful stories. In kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher said whenever I would start to act up or misbehave, all she had to do was tell me that she was going to take coloring time away from me, and then I would be fine. And it's true throughout elementary school. Back in my day, I literally, the way I paid attention in class was I would doodle, and I was able to do both at the same time, and I always did wonderful. Now, apparently nowadays they don't allow that so much, according to my kids. But so I would fail miserably now, is what I'm saying. But
Jeremy,
having said that, though, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So just to touch on what you said before about how you don't think of yourself and kind of hold your art in as maybe as high esteem as other people do. How do you stop that from being, like, self-deprecating and self-loathing? Like, do you look at your art and say it could be better, or I'll do better next time, or how does that work with what you're producing right now?
Well, so I do two things. One is I go ahead and I work and I work and I work until I go, you know what? Even if this isn't it isn't great in my mind, I've put so much damn time into it. People will at least see the effort and hopefully give me a pass. That's sort of like my mantra in my mind.
But surely you've seen the stuff that people have said about your pinball art, and that's obviously where we come into it, because we've only we focus on the pinball stuff. Like,
honestly, it's the one thing people have unanimously said is your art is amazing. Full stop.
Well, I appreciate that, but I look at it, I put it in perspective because I have a lot of people I look up to in the art world, and I have a lot of friends in the art world that do things better. Now, when I say that, here's my thing, and I tell my kids this because my kids are all pretty artistic as well, and so I always say don't try to do things like somebody else because you're bound to fail. If you want to make yourself in this market, because it's a crowded market, it's small, but at the same time, it's a crowded market. If you want to make yourself stand out from the crowd, do things differently. Now, fortunately, I was raised to be an individual, for better or worse. My parents both, they started their own business, and they were very hardworking people who gave me a good work ethic, and so for me, it's one of those things where I always just tried to find my niche. Now, what that came out of is complete self-indulgence, because I would see things and go, oh, that's pretty cool, but man, you know what I'd love to have on my wall? And that's sort of where I started, especially when I started doing the gig poster stuff. That was the greatest thing in the world, because man, bands just trust you. They go, hey, do whatever you want. And I'm like, what? And you're serious? And so that's sort of honestly, that's probably the space that I balance out my insecurities is when I get to do that stuff. But yes, I do. There are days where I go, man, what the hell am I gonna do? Especially in pinball, because it's you gotta bite off digestible chunks. But it's when you're at the front of the line, looking at, oh man, I got to get all the way down, to this path, to this final approved color and everything else. I don't know where the fuck I'm going to go with this.
But knowing that people are critical as they are, and it's a massive echo chamber that we know. Does that worry you? When you're designing, do you worry that that people are going to be critical of your work?
Well, listen, are you talking about the Ghostbusters? Anyway, when that was one of the first things that came out when so there was a leak on Ghostbusters.
Yes.
By the way, I was accused and asked if I was the leak. Let me tell you one thing. If I'm ever going to leak anything, by the way, I'm not going to, but if I were going to leak anything, I'd leak final work. Anyway, but that was sort of my first taste of oh yeah, no, critics. Well, now, fortunately, I've never really given a shit. I in high school, I had an art teacher who, by the way, tried to call every college that I applied to and got scholarships from and tell them not to take me because she hated me because I didn't listen to her. So I had already had a really great time not giving a shit what other people think. Especially when I put the effort into it, I know that, at the end of the day, I can rest at night knowing that I put the effort into it. If people don't like what I did, that's art's subjective. Listen, I don't have an issue with that. If somebody wants to call an LE package Christmas, I don't have a problem with that, because it's the
most wonderful time of the year, right?
Well, listen, everybody loves Christmas. There's not one person who does not love Christmas. Having said that, there's decisions that get made, that get made when you don't always have all the pieces of the puzzle too. So sometimes you have to make the best decision you can at the time.
Yeah. Now, Jeremy, let's move on and use that as a segue to talk about Iron Maiden. I guess the question on everyone's lips is where the fuck is the premium artwork for Iron Maiden?
Well, listen, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but I don't care. No, I'm joking. I think it's safe to say you'll be seeing it sooner than 2 weeks ago. I know when approvals come in and things like that, because then I get to, they tell me so that I can relax for a second. And I do know it's going to be sooner than later, and hopefully very soon. I don't know when it's going to be. I do know that it's not like, in all cases here, it's not like Stern was holding back on purpose. Although, I said this, I think it's not a bad idea if you actually give each package their own due.
Yeah, sure.
As far as now, but you don't want to stretch it out for months. You want to do it, maybe like days or weeks. What is it, fruit? You could do the 3 days of Maiden. Whatever.
Did you have a different approach for each of the models?
I do. I have ideas that maybe are not right, and maybe other people don't agree with. But my thought is this: the Pro has to be the overall. This encompasses this pin, so that number one, people go, oh well, I don't really care that it doesn't have all the bells and whistles. Like, this is what the core of this entire pin was, and obviously it's going to be out there with operators, and people are going to, you want people to be enticed to play this game and put money into it. And then you go to the LE, which has to be unique. Like, I don't think the LE has to be like more specialized, yet it is, but it needs to be unique, because this is something that people are going to use as bragging rights, right? Sure. Like, people are going to be like, oh, I've got this and you don't. So it just has to be unique. And then the premium is the one where you meet in the middle, where you have this sort of, specialized package that again, it's all encompassing, but it's something that has to thematically hit the fan. And so Iron Maiden's an interesting one, because I didn't think there would be as many pinball fans who were also Iron Maiden fans. And I think I was wrong about the numbers. I thought it was maybe going to be like, if we were lucky, maybe 40 to 50% at the high end. And I don't know. It could be higher than that, because I'm a stupid American.
But were you a fan of Iron Maiden before, or like even their art?
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. Like, I was a huge fan of Derek Riggs as a kid. Well, first off, I'm a huge music fan to begin with. So, seeing Eddie as a kid, I remember the first time that I saw an album. And by the way, I grew up back when there were still records.
Yeah,
I'm like 20 years old. And
sure. But look, I was saying that particularly with Iron Maiden, the art being so iconic and so detailed, and I grew up on records as well. It's like you would put the record on and stare at the artwork, and Iron Maiden particularly, for me, I just remember staring at the art, and the more you stared at it, the more detail you would see. So, I mean, that's a big undertaking and a big responsibility that you've got to take doing that art justice.
Well, yeah, and when I was a pro, and I'll be honest, this is how I approach anything that I'm asked to do. But when I was approached, I said, "Well, wait a minute, why would I do this? like, what's the upside for me? This is nothing but risk." Because as an Iron Maiden fan, I would just want to see Derek Riggs artwork on there,
sure.
and that's it. So anything less than that is just that, less than, and it's so. What happened was, so I've got I was telling you, like, I'm not competitive like with other people, but I'm really competitive with myself. I was finally convinced, because the one thing that I always say, and it always bites me in the ass, is I say, you know what? I usually take on jobs and projects that interest me or challenge me. And I'm like, shit, I got caught on that one. So they said, well, won't that be a challenge? I'm like, yeah, I guess so. And so,
massive challenge.
So, oh yeah, well, and Keith Elwin helped sweeten the pot. When I found out that Keith was involved, and he actually wanted me to be involved in this. And I had met with him or whatever. And by the way, fair warning to all listeners, there's going to be an edit here, because I'm going to tell a joke that I can't publicly tell. And I apologize, you're going to have to edit this one. But so what happened was, I met Keith, and we talked, and I had obviously known of him, but I didn't know him personally, and we talked for a period of time, and I had been in there for another project I was working on, and so we got to know each other a little bit here and there, and occasionally he understood my jokes and laughed at them. So I'm like, oh, he's not so bad. And then we were talking, and I'm like, yeah, I still don't know about this Maiden thing, and one day he said something that resonated with me. And it really just changed my opinion of him entirely. And I said, I'm on board. He said,
hilarious joke edited out.
And I thought, that's great. As a pinball designer, there's nothing to be concerned about working with you. Let's do this. Anyway, you got to edit that one out. But
so did Stern approach you with? How does it happen? Do they say, okay, we've got Iron Maiden, and do they pick up the phone and say, Jeremy, are you interested? We need your answer in a couple of days. How does it work? Do you get to see the assets that you'd be working with before you say yes?
So the way it works is actually the designers pick who they want to be on the art. Steve, as a matter of fact, Steve Ritchie and I almost worked together, but this one put me out of the schedule for it. It's sort of, the designer decides, they then approach me and say, hey, would you be interested? And then I say things like, I don't know. And they go, it'll be a challenge. No, that's sort of, the designers, really do control their pins, even though they've got these wonderful teams of people, myself excluded, but, all of their mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, all these people, Chuck's team, everybody, they really sort of make the decision up front and drive everything. And I'll say this, Keith, even more so. Now, obviously, I had worked previously with, an ex-employee. I worked previously with John Trudeau, who had a completely different style. He was very much, kind of go to town, and, he'd occasionally, before I would start something, would be like, well, I have kind of an idea of what this will be over here, this will be over there, but, do what you want with it. Take it or leave it, whatever. But with Keith, it was interesting because Keith had this thing literally so well planned out. I sort of knew, sort of a map of everything very early on, and we would sort of talk and hash some things out. But he's a very thoughtful designer, and I'm not saying others aren't. But he definitely is a high-level player, thinking of the rules and everything else as he was, sort of ironing out geometry and stuff. I was very impressed with Keith. He's a good guy, and hopefully he continues.
Did he choose the 3 Iron Maiden themes for the Pro, Premium, and LE, or was that you, or where does that come from?
We both did. And as a matter of fact, some of it switched. So here's one thing I'll just throw out there. So if you notice, the band itself is now branching out. They have, a mobile game, and they also have a comic book. And those two things, the mobile game had just come out when we started, and the comic book was gestating, but they had sent us some early previews of that stuff. And so it was sort of my job to meld everything together. So you have, the iconic Derek Riggs stuff. You have, these new directions. And by the way, the comic and the game, while being related, both, they go different directions stylistically too. And so, we had to kind of put it all together. As soon as we found out that Legacy of the Beast was going to be, it wasn't just going to be Iron Maiden. It was Iron Maiden Legacy of the Beast. It's like, okay, so how do you get this all work? Now, I think it kind of worked to my advantage because, again, it's an excuse. It's an excuse to have art on there that's not just Derek Riggs. So then people are like, okay, well, what the hell? If he did it, that's fine.
But not only that, you've also then got the different albums which have a unique style in themselves. So you've got the art from the game, the comic, and all the different albums, which has evolved over time, and they've got completely different themes as well. How the hell do you incorporate that all into a bloody playfield?
Basically what you do, I always started with the album. Everything always started with the album. And then I would sort of decide, how I could go ahead and kind of where I could. I'll tell you, this is a very boring thing, but when it comes to color palette, I would start with the album. Now, here's the interesting thing: Derek Riggs did a lot of his work, and I shouldn't say all of it, but I know quite a few of the pieces were done with gouache. Anyone who's ever worked with gouache knows it gets muddy, and in particular when you introduce black. And so in pinball, other than line, black is not always good. If you can use a darker value of something that has some color and saturation to it, it's always more bright and cheery and wonderful. And I personally like color. So I went ahead and would take the sort of start with the album base, but then I would work color palettes off of more along the lines of what would go in tune with, say, the comic or the game. And the comic even more so because, obviously they do the same thing. They don't like black other than the lines either. So it was just sort of I had to feel my way through it. If you want to call it intuition, I mean, it was, informed intuition because I, was always sort of looking and planning whenever I knew tonally where I was going to go. I'd look across the board of everything that was there and then be like, okay, how do I find the best of all this and put it all together? It was just sort of, it's kind of not something you can exactly plan out, but you can sort of, at least plot a course and say, okay, I'm heading this direction and see what happens along the way.
Well, when we first heard it was you, and we got tipped off early on, our response was, fuck
Who
yeah.
tipped you off?
Well, yeah, we're not mentioning who, but everyone tells us shit. But our response was, fuck yeah, if someone's going to do this, it's going to be you. At what stage when you were doing the art for this, did you go, fuck yeah, this is great?
Well, not until it was done. So, a couple weeks ago. No. When I say that, I only mean because, again, I looked at it as like nothing but a potential for failure for me, right? Like, listen, Ghostbusters was well received, the art packages and everything like that. Even Magic Girl was well received, and I apologize to everyone.
Magic Girl is gorgeous. You know that.
Well, what's funny about that is I started that when I still had a day job and I didn't, I wasn't doing illustration full time. And so I, because of that schedule, was able to spend just unlimited hours, sort of finding my way through that one. But that's a story for another day.
Sure.
Anyway, I was excited, but I was, fearful. But that's good because when I'm in the fear zone, that makes me, just work that much harder to try to get myself out of the fear zone. So I was excited the whole time. Listen, how iconic is Iron Maiden? As somebody who, is fortunate enough to do both, things in the music world and in the pinball world. Like, if I was going to do a music pin, like, I'm like, why not? This was like the best possible choice that I could have. Now, having said that, I didn't want to go, and I know I'm going to catch a lot of hell for this, but because of the comic, because of the game and stuff like that, I didn't necessarily want to go super dark with everything, because it is pinball, and I don't like. I tried to make it as dark as I could, but still approachable. Like I think we live in a different world now. Like, let's be honest, Iron Maiden is not dark. And as dark as they may have seemed, when I was like, 7 years old, the world's a lot different now. There's a lot darker stuff out there. So it's one of those things where I wanted people to see it and see it as a celebration of Iron Maiden, I guess. I know that sounds so tacky, but whatever.
Jeremy, you mentioned on a website I was just Googling you before, and half the shit I was Googling was the Plants vs. Zombies. The other half was your stuff. And basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but you kind of said that your career highlight was kind of doing art for pinball. And Christopher Franchi said something similar on our show. What is it about pinball art? Because you do a lot of work outside of pinball for bands and things like that. So why is pinball so much different than everything else you do professionally? And why is it one of the favorite things that you do?
Well, I'll try to be as succinct as I can. First off, I grew up in the days of arcades, and I grew up with a father who loved pinball, and we had, and keep in mind, my parents were hardworking. We were, definitely lower middle class growing up, but my dad had bought an old used pinball machine that he got just an incredible deal on. It was an old Gottlieb roller coaster. So it's not like the greatest thing in the world, but at the same time, it was a working machine, and it was in our basement at our house. And my dad got it because he loved pinball as a kid. So like he definitely got me, interested at that point. I used to stare at this thing and while I wasn't playing, when somebody else was playing, and think, man, this artwork is like I like the silk screen look, the hard lines and stuff. And at that time, I didn't know that's why it looked the way it did. And but I'm like, man, I'd love to do something here, or whatever. And I always thought of different things that I'd want to do. And I'm sure somewhere I've probably even got drawings of me drawing stupid pinball machines that I wanted to see when I was a kid. And chances are they were probably like video game licenses because I was a stupid kid. But so that got me. So getting to now, I'm actually proud of everything I've done. I don't think I've taken on anything that I couldn't be potentially proud of. I'm also a very optimistic individual, believe it or not. I'm also cynical as hell, but I'm very optimistic.
But what about pinball makes it special?
Well, so inherently, it's the longevity of it. Like silkscreen posters in the gig world also have this, but it's in a smaller sort of space. Like the idea of pinball, if you do it right, living. Historically, it's such a small space, but it's a very, very unique and appreciated space too. It's very fortunate and lucky to be a part of, and it's not lost on me. Like I know that listen, people can complain about the shots in Ghostbusters all they want, but no one's going to give a shit in 50 years if they look at it and still like the way it looks.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's interesting to me. Like I'm going to be dead and gone, probably like in a week or two. No, I don't know when. We don't know when. No one knows when. No one knows when. What am I saying? No, but that was a cry for help. Hey, speaking of This is a true story. A little side note on that. When I was a senior in high school, remember I told you my art teacher hated me and we did not get along. Now I think it's because she sobered up, but whatever. I'm not defaming her. That was a joke. Anyway, I actually had to do a senior art show where you have to put up like all your work you had done and like all this other stuff. And it's by the way, it's in a space with everybody else's artwork. It's just that I had like a wall to put crap on or whatever, right? They told me I had to title everything. And by the way, I am not a pretentious artist. I absolutely hate pretense. Everything I do has purpose, but the purpose is to be fun and engaging. It's not to fucking make you weep or cry or think about shit. I was so just put off by having to title everything that as a joke, I would make up these pretentious titles, and then I would put in parentheses as a subtitle, "A Cry for Help." And I did this to every piece, right? My parents got called by the guidance counselor to discuss my well-being. Anyway, so that was fun. What was I talking about before that? I'm
Well,
sorry.
is this why when you list every single company that you've worked for on your website, you also write your mum?
Well, yeah, that and that's just a great joke. I'm perpetually 13 years old, and as a matter of fact, my Xbox Live ID, my PSN name tag, and everything. I was a beta tester for Xbox Live and stuff, so I got your mom. That's my gamer tag, and it's also my PlayStation Network.
It's probably worth like $100,000 or something, right?
Listen, I literally get and by the way, I in hindsight, I should have just called myself your mom instead of Zombie Yeti. Anyway. I get messages like every 10 minutes on there. It's like, oh, nice gamer tag, or where's dad? And it's just 10-year-old kids, but it's entertaining.
I saw it on your website, but then I saw it on another website. So I'm like, okay, he's not going to make the same joke twice. So I actually Googled I Googled your mum brand or like your mum products, and I was like, no, this is just a joke.
No, it's a joke. Yeah, it's a joke. At the end of the day, any good quick response that ends in your mom is always good. It's a good retort when somebody says something.
So just going back to Iron Maiden then. So with the design that you're doing, how much of it was either knocked back, or what was sort of like the approval process with the band or whoever manages the band?
Well, so the way it sort of works, the way I work, I should say, first and foremost, is I sort of do rough sketches that then get approved to go to ink. And that's to head off changes, so that when you get to the ink stage, I can just focus on the ink. And at that point, they can decide if I inked it well or not and say, no, do this, which is, usually not the case. But and then from there, it's color. Now, in this case, we tried to head off a lot of stuff up front. As a matter of fact, I almost think, and I could be wrong on this, so don't quote me on it. Ask Keith. But I think Keith and I originally had the Ellie and the premium focus reversed of what it is now, to a point. I almost think that's how we started out. And they were like, actually, and they gave us a really good reason to make a change and say, no, switch those. Make this one the premium, make this one the LE. And obviously they know their brand way better than we do. As much as we think we may know it, as much as we would like to think, that we have the inside track on that, we don't. We have to defer. And so I will say, along the process, I had minor changes, and then at one point they sort of rethought one thing, and it was sort of at the same time we were rethinking things too. And at first I was like, oh man, this is gonna add a lot of work. And then I was like, oh wait a minute, this is actually a good idea, so it's kind of worth it. And so that probably pushed out why we have the premium and LE reveals, a little bit later down the line, was, playing catch up with some of those changes. But we're not talking anything arbitrary. It was all for the betterment of the project and for the fans. So I'm okay with it, and I was okay with it. Now, keep in mind too, I'm a stupid American and I'm a pushover.
So if you think about when you look at the play field, the first thing you see is obviously the Egyptian theme and probably the Power Slave album sort of through it. And I know it's got everything else there, but that's what you see when you first see the playfield. Was that your direction, or was that sort of given to you?
Well, so Keith had sort of laid out his sort of master plan of inserts, and he sort of laid them out in a pyramid. And he was like, I'm thinking I don't know, maybe some sort of power slavey type of stuff in this area, right? And so I'm like, well, yeah, no, absolutely, obviously, as a focal point, that would be good. So what I did was I took that when I actually worked on it, and I sort of reacted to myself and made a decision that I don't know and I still to this day don't know that everybody agrees on or likes. But the one thing about Ghostbusters, and keep in mind with Ghostbusters, I tried to do the playfield as if it were silkscreen, old school, like hard lines. There's very little, that could not be traditionally screen printed. Not to say 4-color screen printed like the way pins used to be at Stern. And so with this one, I said, you know what? I got so much shit on there. Even though it's about negative space, it's very little negative space. I wanted to open up a lot of space. I wanted, and I know this is going to sound stupid, but the thing I loved about Keith's design was, first off, you could always see where the ball was. Boy, that's nice. And secondly, that's a joke, but it's true. And secondly, I loved the openness down on the lower half of the playfield that'll sort of allowed you to, I guess, for me, because again, I used to come from user interface. I looked at it and I said, this is great space to sort of play with, to sort of allow people to appreciate each of these shots, right? Like, so you can go ahead and be like, oh, it seems so open. And so I like the idea of extending the Power Slave area into a desert wasteland, that, by the way, had I had time, I would have probably chocked full of all kinds of stuff. But I wanted there to be openness that I did not have in Ghostbusters. And again, for better or worse, some people probably like it. Some people go, no, it's too much. But I wanted it.
Interesting topic, because do you would you prefer less inserts on a pinball machine? Like, obviously, the more space there is, the easier it is for you to do your work, right?
Yeah, I think less inserts sounds like the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Because I only say that because you need those to tell the tale. And Keith's proven it with this game. You don't need anything but looking at that playfield to understand the game at any given time. And it's because of those inserts. Like, if you start taking them down, and maybe, I don't know, maybe you do some sort of combo, like in the old, days where it would essentially be like, thousands and 10,000s and whatever. But I don't. Keith also allowed me to, peek in some art over some inserts, which I would have loved to have actually experimented with more and pushed further. But obviously time is of the essence. So, you go where you can. But no, I actually understand the depth that's needed for these games. You need the inserts. So that's not the thing that I would change. If I wanted more art on this thing, I would say you go ahead and figure out how to get some art on that damn blank speaker area. Come on, guys. It's my own personal opinion.
Instruction cards. Cards.
Well, yeah, that's not bad either.
Oh my God.
I'll be honest. So coming off of Ghostbusters is my first actual produced pin. Clearing my throat. The one thing that I was kind of sad about was losing my ratio and format, losing some space on the Translite and backglass because of the LCD. But in the end, I'm fine with it. It's okay. But I miss it a little bit.
What can you tell us about the premium artwork? Because, as you know, by the time people listen to this, they might have already seen it. But it says on the feature matrix it's Egyptian themed. So, how much Egyptianness is there on there? Is there like the Sphinx style thing? Is it just big Iron Maiden letters?
It's nothing but sand. It's actually a new technique. It's all sand, and it's actually you have to take a penny and scrape the side to reveal what's underneath the sand. By the way, I that's not true. I don't recommend it. You will damage your machine, and I do not warrant you that. So, no, I can't say anything because I'm a good guy. All I'll say is this: I think if people like like the idea of Egyptian themes and the Iron Maiden logo, they'll love it.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, I mean, I know.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, stop. Let me go back. No, I think if people like Christmas, this is not for them.
I've missed something. What's the Christmas comment? What one's that for?
It's just green and red. The red
because of the green trim.
Which one?
The red armor on the LE, the one that you're getting, Marty. The fucking LE that you're getting has red trim.
No, this is why I'm trying to work it out. So that's the one that I've got. I've seen the art. Are people calling that like the Christmas edition?
Just us stupid Americans. No, yes, it started. It started as I think a joke that somebody made. Can you believe it? And I think I'm making this joke because I saw on Pinside that there were quite a few people who were like, "Hey, look, I'm funny. I'm making the same joke," and so I'm just sort of trying to run it into the ground like they are, I guess.
Yeah, just trying to own it. Yeah, good.
Listen, you are going to absolutely adore that machine. First off, and this is nothing against Stern or the folks that do their photo shoots, but the photos of that are awful. When you see the actual thing, and listen, I'm not talking about I'm just talking about the printing, everything about it. When you see it in person,
yeah, well, none of those shots have ever looked as good as what they do in real life, and I know that they try to do their best with what they can to highlight, I guess, the brightness of it. But and obviously with the LE, we've got the whatever the foil sides are. That doesn't come across in any picture, so you really got to be able to see that.
Yeah, and the foil comes through on anything that's metallic. So I actually masked out non-metallic areas and stuff. So it's got a really interesting look to it as you walk around it. It's pretty cool. I think anyway. What do I know?
Jeremy, you've got a Ghostbusters and obviously, well, not obviously, but you chose that Ghostbusters maybe depending on the artwork package that you like the most that you produce. So, what Iron Maiden do you plan on getting? Is what I'm trying to get at.
Ooh.
Well, now first off, let me be very clear.
That's not a loaded question. Sure.
I chose. No, I know. I chose the Ghostbusters package that I did. Because I didn't have a lot of money, and so no, I didn't negotiate well. Like, I'm not smart. I don't know this stuff, right? No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I got a wonderful deal in my contract, and so I chose the Pro because I honestly was more fearful of how the hell am I going to handle more things going wrong with a machine if they go wrong, as everyone's telling me that they go wrong eventually. No, that's not true either. You're right. The Pro's the best one. Anyway, so having said that, I'm trying to be nice and no. I was informed that I can do something special when I have mine on order, and so I'm actually going to do a premium with one side the Pro, if that says it.
Ooh,
I could not get a hold of an LE, by the way.
Sure, okay.
True story. They would not.
Frenchie does the same, and he does like a little hybrid and makes them make up a super extra limited edition one of one kind of thing, just so it can be super special.
Yeah, well, I'm actually on the cabinet front. I'm actually I'm going with the Ghostbusters cabinet front on this one, just to make it really confusing to people.
So, is there anything that if you had more time, you would do differently with the Iron Maiden art?
Everything.
Really?
More sand.
Yeah.
You can quote me on this one. You can always go further. The probably, if I had to say anything, it's the play field, where I would probably have tried to hide and tuck in as much stuff as humanly possible. As is, there's a lot of stuff you don't get to see. It's little stuff, but listen, it's not that I didn't spend the time on it. I totally did. It's just that if it were one of those things where I had time to noodle beyond the scope, I would have tried to hide in just about everything and the kitchen sink that I could. So
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm looking at the playfield here, that 25 meg picture that you can zoom into like specks of dust on the playfield, and there's like nowhere to fit crap. Like, what are you talking about? What are you trying to hide in? Like underneath plastics or something?
Well, yeah, not just that, but I really I see you're not supposed to tell people what you didn't put in. Damn it. So I got to pull back on this. I take that back. No, there's nothing that I would have done differently. No, there's always things that you could have done. You think in hindsight, oh man, I wish I would have done this, that, or the other. I'll leave those up to your imagination. I'm not going to.
Let me ask a different question then. Have you been working, or are you going to start working on the accessories package? We all know that Stern does kind of like toppers these days. Who knows when they come out? The Star Wars one still hasn't shown the light of the day. But the armor, inner blades for the Pro and the Premium. Are you working on that kind of stuff, or?
Would you believe me if I told you I might actually have just finished all that stuff off?
No.
I think I'm waiting for approvals, but I think I might be done with those. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, and they're pretty cool, like ridiculously cool. And I guess I gotta watch what I say here because I don't know if I'm supposed to say that either. But no, yeah, I think there is stuff. And it's cool.
Does the topper move, or is it static?
That I will tell you, I don't necessarily have the answers to. I know there are multiple parts, and that I did art for multiple parts, and I know there are dimensions. I know that there is some depth. I don't know anything past that at this point. Now, having said that, I'm going in for a meeting this week. As a matter of fact, while I was working on Iron Maiden, and ordinarily I go into, when I'm working on a project with Stern, I go in about every 2 to 3 weeks, and just sort of meet with the team and we hash things out, and then I make lots of jokes and people look at me funny, and then. But during this process, because it was sort of we were rushing to fill a space because maybe the game I was working on before for some reason got shelved, whatever. And
sure.
So I actually have not been there since like September. That's how I sort of started this in September and kind of just finished up. But whatever. So I'm going in, and I'll hopefully see some of that stuff, and not tell you, but I'll know this week.
Fair enough. Let's go back. We're going to turn the time machine backwards, and we'll go back as far as you want us to go back, if you know where we're heading. So
last week.
Yeah, I want to know what happened last week. No.
Here's what I want. I know where you're going with this.
Well, I wanted to go to Ghostbusters. Really, was
okay. Perfect. That's wonderful.
Yeah, we're gonna go further. Let's face it, right now.
Yeah, well, that's probably true.
But actually, I don't necessarily want to go too far back and relive all the pain and pick off a scab. But I'm actually just really curious to know. I kind of said it before, and I know it sounds like a bit of a suck, but. The playfield art on Ghostbusters is pretty phenomenal. I'm curious to know that process now, working with Stern for the first time, how much of an easy transition that was for you.
The single greatest asset as a human being to me at Stern is Greg Ferreras. He's fantastic, and he basically he knows how to keep me calm.
Right.
Obviously, first time I worked with him, I'm going to tell you, I literally felt like I was open to do whatever I wanted on that project. And whether Greg somehow used mind manipulation to get specific things out of me, I don't recall. I remember him always just being encouraging, and they kind of, because that was sort of a little bit of a dead license in that they didn't have assets. They had very little. So it was kind of like, do what you want. That playfield in particular, I had a meeting, and Dwight and JT sort of, we all sort of with an ink pen, and Dwight had it taped up to a whiteboard, was kind of like, I think over here we're going to have this thing, because he's thinking of the rules, and he's like, and over here this, and then it was just sort of left to me to kind of interpret, like, okay, this is going to have something to do with the librarian over here. This is going to have something to do, whatever. I was actually left to my own devices for the most part, and I got to explore and kind of experiment. So it was. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. I think it ended up being ultimately a good thing because, again, I didn't want to fail. I was working my ass off to make sure I didn't fail. And I set myself up with sort of, the concept that I had, which was very organic. And it was all about, negative space in regards to, sort of a tighter, smaller bit of negative space. But I always had the whole thing in my mind being, you know what, I'm going to be a nerd for a second. Gotcha. So in the art world, there's a bunch of different ways that you can create composition, and there's a lot of different ways that you can push depth. I am a big fan, because I love color. I'm a big fan of contrasting not only value but warms and cools in the color spectrum, right? And so in my mind, I always thought of the sky. I'm explaining away the magenta and purple now, but I always thought of the sky in Ghostbusters. Towards the end, in particular, obviously, I always thought of it as very purple, very, very, like it depending on which projection I had seen or which remastered version I had seen. It always had this very sort of weird, warm and cool tone, which to me always ended up being like sort of magenta purple kind of thing. And so I instantly started with as a base that, and I started building a palette out of it because I was left to meander and to my own devices. And it turns out people actually liked it, and I was allowed to continue. And so it was an experiment, right? The whole thing was an experiment, but Greg made it effortless for me. And the whole reason I even did the project and worked with Greg was because of Dennis Nordman. So thank that guy.
So, but if you think about, the Ghostbusters license and obviously Iron Maiden license, is it a similar process for you because you've got the likes of Greg that's dealing with a license holder and you're getting your direction from him?
No, it's always a little bit different, and some of the difference comes in the fact that we now know each other better and are probably more comfortable with each other. And at the same time, the processes, depending on the schedule, have a big thing to do with it. Ghostbusters, and I could, listen, I could be wrong, but I kind of think Ghostbusters was a bit of an experiment and a bit of a risk with Stern. They did not expect it to be a big seller. I don't think they expected it to be a big machine in general, and maybe that's why they put JT on it. I don't know. And
why do they always seem to get it wrong? Like, did they get that wrong for Iron Maiden as well? Like, is that why there's only 500 LEs versus Guardians of the Galaxy, which has I think 600, and they're still available?
I really don't know. I really don't know. I don't know who. At the end of the day, I don't know. I do know a lot of the bean counters there. No, I do know a lot of the people there who make those decisions. I don't know a lot of the decisions being made, and I obviously, at the end of the day, I don't think I'd second guess any of their decisions. I think there are risks to be taken in all projects, and I think when you're talking about dollars and cents in sort of the perspective of what's going on at the time you're making that decision, I think they're making the best decisions they possibly can. Now, I don't know what drives them in that regard, but I don't think anyone ever sets out to not make the right decision. How's that?
Yeah.
That's like isn't that judicious of me?
Yeah, sure. So along those lines, then, what would you have been able to do with the Star Wars machine?
You know what? Nothing. No. I'll be honest with you. There was one conversation I had at one point when I knew that was going on when I was working on Ghostbusters, and somebody made kind of like, oh, would you be interested? And I said, fuck no. And I've done some work for Lucasfilm with my friend Hydro, and that was before Disney, took the reins. And all I know is this: it's a protected brand. It's a very protected brand. If I'm not mistaken, the artists who ended up working on that were all like Lucasfilm approved, and pretty much like they were the ones they said you need to use these people.
Yeah.
And this, that, and the other. So yeah, there was no way on earth anyone was ever going to be pleased with that based on the process alone. Now, I think it's a great game. Obviously, Steve is the king for a reason. Everyone loves him, and I don't think that you ever could have done that one right in the time frame that was put forth. How's that? Because I personally, if I'm doing that license, I'm saying, listen, this thing has to live forever. If you want to do it right, let's extend, the time to produce this thing and make it right. But I know that's not the way business works. Good.
Let me ask you this. Chris Franchi, we had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. He said that he's contracted for 2 more titles from Stern, possibly out this year. We don't know that. Are you contracted for any more titles from Stern currently?
Officially, of course, 1. Officially, how's that? In that, that's why I'm going in this week, because it starts up again. So obviously, put 2 and 2 together and know that what I was working on with JT was scrapped. Because nobody wants to. Of course, he's innocent until proven guilty, but nobody wants to put out a pin.
Sure.
With potential stains on it. So that one, I think this is known, and if it's not, this will be the last pin I work on. But George Gomez took over. And started over, and he's working. I'm working with him on that one, and we'll see. That's supposed to be out this year, I'm told. So I don't know.
What how does that work with you? I mean, you finish doing. Well, I'm not sure how far you got into the job, but does it become almost
far?
Yeah. Well, I remember in an interview with JT, he said that you're so quick and you kind of already finished the work for the next pinball machine, and that was like a year and a half ago or something. So does that just double your work? Like, how do you? I don't want to know details about your contract with Stern, but do you get credit for that, or do you just do it? Say, okay, well, I got a contract for this pinball machine. I guess I just have to do it again.
No, they're very fair. If there's if something has to be done again, they're very fair about that. That's not an issue. I will say this. Let me be clear. We had approvals on everything when the shoe dropped. I think everything except we had literally just started on the playfield, but I had actually had the playfield ready to go to ink. So if it was going to happen, it kind of happened at the best time. Now, it could have happened a few weeks earlier, would have been better, but it's not like the playfield was like colored and done and everything like that. So it's not a bad thing. And I will say this, that what there was versus what I've seen George do, this is going to be way more than what it was, for the better, and it's something special. So I'm excited. I mean, like, I was excited before, but I'm very excited now. And obviously working with George, he's a great guy. He's the guy who's, by the way, who's hired me for everything. So you got to thank him at the end of the day too. I'm really excited. And do you know Tanyo Kleiss? Tanyo's been working.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, you will look him up. You know Tanyo. Tanyo's a great guy, and Tanyo has been Tanyo, George, and myself have been sort of, I guess, the main brains behind this one. I guess mainly it's Tanyo and George, and then I just go ahead and draw things. And I'm excited. We'll see. Maybe people. Here's the thing, though. So my whole goal always is to outdo what I did the last time, right? So let's put this into perspective. I do Ghostbusters, then I do this next one, and then it gets put to the side, and then I do Maiden. So obviously it's going to be less than Maiden. Lower your expectations, people. It's kind of true. No, but whatever. I always learn. Listen, I always learn things. As a matter of fact, you young artists out there. Here's the key. Every time you do something, recognize your failures, recognize your successes, throw the failures out the window, put the successful stuff beside you, and build on that for the next thing. So what I'm saying is, every time I do something, I find something that I'm like, oh, I like the way this was, I came to this solution. I don't like the way I came to this solution. And then I sort of throw that away, or I put the other one in front of me and move on. So what led to Maiden is directly correlated to what I did on that someday to be released project. And so maybe that'll, like, when you see it, you'll kind of recognize that, or you won't, because I don't know how people who aren't artists look at things.
Okay, well, then let's do it. I'm not going to go into the gory details, but all I want to know is, because you said sort of, moving forward, you look at what you've done and you improve. So reflecting back on reflecting back on Magic Girl, you go into as much as you want about the experience. I'm more so interested when you look back at the art that you did, forgetting the experience that you had. When you look at it, what do you think? I know it's probably hard to separate it, but
no, I can be good.
But can you look at it objectively like we do? And we saw it in the flesh probably about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, and it is just such a beautiful thing.
Well, I again appreciate that, because if people didn't think that, then Stern never would have hired me. That's for sure.
And this is what we've said. We've said a long time, as we've reported on that over the time, that it's ended up being a good news story for you because something good came out of it, and it might not have happened that way. So, but looking back at it again, do you have those? Can you look at it?
No, I can't. Listen, I can. This is listen. First off, I just want to say this. I had a lot of great time working with John. As a matter of fact, if things would have been handled ever so slightly differently, as in if he would have communicated and let me in on things so that after the fact I didn't think he was, possibly being less than truthful with everyone, I would have given him the benefit of the doubt, and we'd be okay. As a matter of fact, I wish the best for John. All I've ever wanted is for him to rectify the situation and get his reputation back, because love him or hate him for his choices, he's a talented guy. He's a very interesting creative. So I wish him the best. I don't know everything that's going on. I did read that there's some Zidware court case.
Yeah, there's the court case. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I won't comment on that because I don't know anything about it. But I will say this: I have no ill will towards John. He actually came here and took me to this old 50s, and literally it's been around since like the 40s. It's a truck stop not too far from my place. He always wanted to have breakfast there, and so one day he actually showed up, and this was last fall, maybe might have been early I don't know, but he showed up and said, "Hey, do you want to go eat?" And we talked.
Did he have a boombox at the front of your lawn?
Holding up over his head? He did not. But he did pay for breakfast. So it's kind of the same thing. No, but no, we had a talk, and obviously he was kind of telling me of we made up. How's that? We tried to make up, and unfortunately, I told him I just don't think I can obviously contractually, but also just for the sake of history and my
he's like an ex-girlfriend, right? He's like an ex-girlfriend. You want to move on, right?
Yeah, like we can still be friends, which means we're never going to talk again. But but listen, I hope nothing but the best for him, and one of these days, I hope that he shows up at like a pinball convention and people don't want to punch him. That would be great.
But that's probably good for you. I mean, it's part of the cathartic experience, right? You have moved forward.
Yeah.
At some way, you can have some sort of resolution, and it's kind of what I'm sort of saying. Like, I mention it again that Magic Girl is a beautiful machine to look at,
sure.
And it is a beautiful machine only to look at. It's a shit thing to play. We've played it. It's dreadful, but for you to be able to look back at that and not have resentment to that memory, it's probably good for you to have at least that moment where you go, yep, okay, we spoke, we've moved on, and now I'm moving forward, and I've got this great future with Stern. Sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it wasn't even like, I'll be honest with you, like it's in the back of my head when I took Ghostbusters. In the back of my head, I thought, hey, in a perfect world, this is going to work out great. Maybe John, gets things worked out, and when this is over, John's free and clear, and I'll talk to George and everybody, and we'll get Magic Girl in here, and John working, like I was so naive and stupid. I thought I even kept wishing for the best case scenarios in the back of my head, kind of thing, right? Like, I mean, and by the way, I don't know that I ever thought that. Out loud in my head. By the way, what does that mean? Is that like an oxymoron? What does that mean? That's interesting. But it was one of those things where I always hope for the best. And to this day, listen, I know in particular Deep Root. A lot of people like to make the jokes about Deep Root because I am told it means something different in other countries. Root, right? Root means something.
Yeah, it means dick fuck, right? We've covered it many times. It literally means as in there as you can get.
Well, that's interesting. So it's the equivalent of the Americans' balls deep.
Balls deep.
Anyway, which is a pinball term, right? For
sure.
Exactly.
So listen, I hope those guys. I mean, I hope for the best there. And I met Robert. I literally ran into him. He was parked, and I ran into his car. No, I ran into him at Midwest Gaming Classic as we were both walking in. Somebody yelled my name, and I turn around and I look, and it was him. And we talked. We had a good conversation, and then I think he was off with Dennis Nordman, and I think that's the last time I saw him. But we had a nice talk. I think his intentions are good. Obviously, anyone who's spending money intends to not lose it. So let's hope for the best, right?
Yeah. Well, just I guess the last thing on kind of Magic Girl and that whole part of your career. Does she have a name? Because I mean, I had this chick as the background of my phone for like 2 years because I don't know what it is about that picture, but it just kind of sucks me in, and it's like this mysterious, like, you know, who is she? Why does she have these weird tattoos on her face, and why is she so damn good looking and she's not even real? That's what I want to know.
You know what? You know what's interesting? I wish that I could sit down and tell you all the conversations that John and I had about that, but in good confidence, I'm not going to, because I'm going to leave that up to them. It's not my character, I guess, as it were. I can just tell you what I tried to do with it, and that was I tried to make something strong and hopefully attractive, and you know, I was hoping at the end of the day that compositionally speaking it all worked out. And again, it had to be traditionally silkscreen, so that was my approach. I went very straightforward, solid colors and stuff.
Well,
like
it looks great without like the backlighting, and then you turn it on and it just gets totally saturated with like purple and pink or whatever the hell's behind the back glass. I don't know what.
Yeah, I think that's a combination of the bad lighting and bad printing, in my opinion. But whatever.
Well, Ryan's had a long history of enjoying himself with ribbon on the back box of pinball machines. So thanks for depositing into his bank.
Hey, I do what I can. Go balls deep. Anyway.
Yes.
Jeremy, what's? I mean, I know this is a lame question. I'm sure you get asked it all the time, but
I like lame questions.
Well, I mean, you drew Alice in Wonderland, you know, and you were just kind of getting started with that, and that's, you know, absolutely beautiful picture in itself. Is there, a dream theme? Whether or not it's possible to make into a pinball machine, we don't care about that. Is there a license or an unlicensed kind of like genre that you would love to draw in a pinball machine?
Well, there's quite a few. Again, because I love music. I have a lot of bands that I would love to see that I know are impossibilities because of the fact that they're even more niche than anyone else. But obviously, because of my childhood love and my continued work with the band Primus, I think they'd make, from a visual standpoint, they would be great. Also, the Melvins is probably my go-to if I had to do that. But as far as like film and everything else, I'll be honest with you. There's one that I've said for a long time, and now this past week, someone's going to snatch it up, and I'm not going to be the one to do it. But I always wanted to do Bill and Ted. Mainly because of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Listen, that's a music pin that just happens to have some zany characters and story going on.
Well, didn't the latest film just get renewed?
Yeah, that's what I said. I'm like, man.
Yeah.
But nobody. I won't get to touch it. Somebody else will snatch that one up, or listen, just as a side note. The way I do things, the way Donnie does things. By the way, I want to give a shout out to Donnie because, first off, Donnie's a great guy. But also, if it weren't for Donnie, I wouldn't have ever even probably got hired by John to do Magic Girl.
Yes,
at the end of the day, if you look at the timing of when he hired me, it was after the success and popularity of Metallica. I mean, really, timing wise, and I never put that together till later. But anyway, so I love Donnie, and I thank Donnie for everything. And one of these days, him and I are going to work on something together. But having said that, I'm not saying it's a pin, by the way. Don't get too excited. But one of the things about the way I do things, the way Donnie does things, versus the way someone say like Christopher Franchi does something is if you're dealing with high definition LCDs and you have assets to live action things like film, man, you go with Franchi, man, because you're going to get an interpretation and a disconnect if you have line drawn interpreted art, and then you've got like actual film clips from the movie, and it's like like these human beings in the real world. So when I say that, I'm not even sure if thanks to that damned high def LCD, curse you, Jersey Jack. I don't know. We might get stuck in some sort of space where all Donnie and I get to work on, or I don't know. Not going to be original pins, right? Nobody does those anymore. But anyway, I just throw that out there because I curse the high def LCD, and I just wanted everyone to know that. Yeah. And by the way, I have no evidence that that's the case. I just say that because if you want to go with if you want to go that direction, Christopher Franchi is insanely talented in what the way he does things and what he does, and if you're going to do like Star Wars, I think he would have been great for Star Wars. Now, obviously, I know that there was other things in there, but I think he would have been perfect for that. But whatever. What do I know?
Jeremy, I want to tell you a quick story before we close it up here. I went to Texas Pinball Festival, and before I went, I spent a couple of days in Vegas. Now, I just thought Vegas was this really classy joint, so I stupidly packed like a little suit and blazer and like a tie and the first night I was in Vegas, I kind of like dressed it all up and I kind of looked around and everyone was just kind of like bumming around in shorts and t-shirts and stuff, right? And like
it's
no
hot.
one,
it's hot out
there,
man.
Yeah. So the second day I kind of just relaxed and I kind of just wore my pinball t-shirt and I got compliments on what I was wearing, and I was wearing the Stern's 30th anniversary limited edition Zombie Yeti skull t-shirt.
Oh,
and
nice.
two people stopped me and told me that they love my t-shirt. Where'd I get it from? And like, well, you can't get it. It was this limited edition thing. So that's the power of Zombie Yeti. Like I thought I was going to get complimented or be this really cool guy in this freaking suit. And it was your artwork that literally two people stopped me, and that's never happened.
Wow.
So.
Well, that's nice. That's nice. Nobody stopped me yesterday. I was wearing my Pissing Gizmo shirt that I made, and not one person stopped me and said anything about it. So, I guess that's a counter to your point. But that's great. I appreciate that. I would love to do more things like that. As a matter of fact, that was actually just a little shitty sticker originally, and then they're like, oh, that'd be cool as a shirt, and I'm like, God damn it, I for once drew something small, but I went ahead and I reworked it, and it turned out pretty good. I liked it. I have one. Yeah. Unfortunately, for the past 8 months, I've been sitting in a chair drinking soda and working, so I'm not sure how well I look at it now, but the weather's warming up. I'll get outside. Yeah, no, that's great. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys asking me to come on. I don't know that I had anything interesting to say, but so. I don't mind talking because I don't talk much unless you get me talking.
Well, as I said, you're an asset to Stern. You're a reason why a lot of collectors buy pinball machines. You attract people to play pinball machines on site. So we thank you for that, and we look forward to seeing what's coming up next with George Gomez.
Well, listen, I want to personally thank every person who's ever supported me in my life, and in particular, my mother on this Mother's Day, because isn't that what you're supposed to do as a good son? Sure. And do you guys have Mother's Day over there? Do they call it something different?
Yeah, we do. We did
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Did you do something nice for your moms?
Sure.
Yeah.
That was very convincing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, I don't know. Like, I actually, my parents were always supportive of me. By the way, I have to say that. Like, out of everything, my parents always supported me. My mom used to ask me why I don't draw nice things, but other than that, they were always very supportive. So it's one of those things where I got to give them a lot of credit for getting me where I'm at, just by not telling me to stop. And also, I honestly, legitimately want to thank everybody in the pinball world who has ever, obviously, if you buy stuff that I've done, that's great. That helps me out. Actually, it doesn't help me out directly, but it gets me hired again. So
keeps you employed.
Yeah, it keeps me employed. But at the same time, literally the kind words, you guys actually being interested enough to have me on and ask me some questions. I appreciate all of it. It does not get lost on me. So thank you.
Awesome, man.
Where can people head to send money your way? I mean, besides buying a pinball machine, what's the PayPal address to send some money?
No, we won't go there. Although I did just.
.com?
Oh, hey now.
Pinball designer, social justice.
I like to call myself. I have this new URL. It is pinballartistinventor.org. Anyway, that's a joke. It's a joke. No, all I'll say is this. I just yesterday I did Primus's gig poster for yesterday's show, and I think almost everything's sold out on my site, but those actually be going on sale this next week at some point. I couldn't tell you when.
What's your website? Is it zombieyeti.com?
ZombieYeti.com, yeah.
It's
ZombieYeti.com/pinballartistinventor. No, so I want to listen. I got to say this again. I thank John for everything that he taught me. And by the way, as I said before, whenever I do anything, I look for the good and the bad, and I throw the bad away, and I concentrate on the good. So anyway, I hope I hope someday
you and Dave Van Ness, right? We had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. Do you just call each other up and just cry and just give each other a virtual hug?
No, you know what? Actually, yeah. So you know what? I gotta give a shout out to David Van Ness while we're talking. So, quick story was David and I met after Zidware went south because David was actually working on the LCD animations and all that good stuff for Magic Girl and for actually I think Raza as well. Yeah. So we just sort of serendipitously when I was reaching out and discovered the forums at Pinside and all the wonderful people who have nothing but positive things to say about the hobby that they love. We became friends, and we talk on and off throughout the weekend. Obviously, he works at Spooky. He works with Spooky now, and I work with Stern, and we have this wonderful, very outspoken rule that we don't discuss pinball at all. So we discuss our other work in our other, lives, because obviously he's a film editor and a filmmaker.
Theme parks, talk about Disneyland.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's totally into that stuff, man. Yeah, he's super into that. I appreciate all that stuff, but I'm into much stupider things than that. By the way, that's proper English if you're American to say stupid. But yeah, no, David's a great guy. Hi, David. And he has one of those super cool accents like you guys do, so everything he says sounds like really important. I'm not saying the first
time anyone's ever said that about us.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, you guys sound much, like when I talk, all I hear is sort of like nothing. Like it's just sort of like, as an American, of course, I realize that my speech pattern is the baseline, and everybody else is just weird and different. So, but you guys sound, everything you say sounds really like, I don't know, special.
It's like the opposite of Jeff Teolis. Like he's given me compliments on the way I speak. So thank you, Jeremy. We appreciate you, and thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, and hopefully you don't have to edit too much.
I won't have to edit anything.
And lastly, thanks to Keith Elwin and all the Stern folks, George Gomez, Greg Ferris, Keith's wonderful programming team, everybody else for making this thing incredible. Now go buy 2, everyone.
You've done your bit now.
If you buy 2, I promise you, at some point, I will personally thank you on a podcast when I'm supposed to let them go because it's time to go. So, how's that?
All right, mate.
Thanks, man.
Thanks. Catch
Take
you later.
care.
So there you go. That was Jeremy Packer, Zombie Yeti. What did we learn, Ryan?
That this will be our most edited episode ever. I'm not sure how many jokes I'm going to say.
No filter.
That's the first thing that we said when we stopped recording, after the interview, and he was like, "Oh, really? Like that was me being tame." I'm like, "Holy shit!"
I do. One thing we learned: he is a funny bastard.
Yeah,
He is very funny.
Look forward to seeing the premium artwork, which I said I'm sure by the time this episode airs and people listening to it, they might have already seen it. But I think we're just lucky to have him, Dirty Johnny, and Christopher Franchi as the kind of the awesome trio that Stu can use to launch their pinball machines.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that they've been pretty crucial in, I guess, restoring people's faith in Stern and the machines that they do. When people talk about Ghostbusters, they talk about the art. When they talk about, Donnie's machines, they talk about the art, and Franchi as well. They've added so much to the visual presentation of these machines.
Yep, and I said that there's selling points. Who designed the machine, who's coding the machine, and who did the art? The three questions that people kind of ask these days.
Yeah, so there you go. And for those people that are probably going to bring up, we really didn't want to delve too much into the whole J-pop thing because, effectively it's a part of his life that he's moved on from, and he touched on it, and that's probably enough, really.
Yeah.
So, do you know what? It's not a week unless we talk about Highway. What do you reckon?
I fucking love talking about Highway.
So,
did you know that there was a document release, Marty?
I do know that there was a document release.
We got the unedited version here.
We got the full thing. So this was the report to creditors for Highway Pinball Limited in liquidation.
Now, Marty, we've got viewers and listeners from all around the globe, right? So we don't want to alienate people by talking in a certain currency. So the amount owing that was on there, the balance sheet of liabilities, was about 1.9 million pounds.
Yes.
Now, for all the Aussies out there, that's about 3.4 million Australian dollars. For all the people that conform to the European Union and the Euro, that's 2.1 million. All the people in the US, it's almost $2.6 million. For all the Vietnamese listeners out there, this is serious. It's 59 billion dong. That's a lot of dong. And for all of our Persian listeners
have
out there,
too much dong.
For all of our Iranian listeners, it's 109 billion Iranian rials is how much they're in the hole. So just putting it out there.
I'm just putting it out there that of all the things that you could have done with this news piece, you've just gone and converted into these currencies.
I said it last week. If I can't make fun of this situation, then I can't talk about it. It's too depressing.
Well, shall we make even more fun out of this situation?
Oh, we got to keep it a little bit classy, Marty. I'm not sure where you're going with this.
Well, we have never been classy, so let's not do it now.
Okay.
But look, effectively, they've been left with a shitload of debt, right? And I would say probably a lot more than I thought there would be, if I'm honest.
This is the thing, though. I mean, they list kind of the Pinball Brothers on there as well, and is that kind of like cash injection? I mean, this is business, and you can fudge numbers and move stuff around and assets and make things look worse off than they are, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was the whole thing. On the list, obviously, Pinball Brothers was there being owed £800,000, right? So is that the money that they invested up front to try and get back? Or is that additional that they put in after? Who knows? But there's also the list of everybody that's... Well, we know it's not a complete list, but it did actually have a list of those people that had... the end users that had money in on the machines as well, and there's some people that we know that didn't have their names on there.
Yeah, and apparently there's some names on there that have kind of full amounts owing. Let's say, for example, £100,000, but that was the initial purchase order, and then they received maybe $50,000 worth of goods. So we don't really know how accurate that list is, and maybe that's just the first draft, and it will continue to evolve. I don't know. I guess the question is, how much of this is Andrew Highway's problem, and how much of it is the Pinball Brothers? I mean, they were the kind of the investors from the start, and people say Andrew kind of made all the wrong decisions, which caused the company to go down this path. But these Pinball Brothers is kind of like a faceless, who are they? What do they look like? When you want to get angry at someone, Marty, you want a punchable face, right?
Yeah, well, we got one.
Yeah, like when you want to be angry at the Australian government, you think of the Prime Minister, and you're like, God, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
You want to be angry at Highway Pinball? Andrew Highway. How can you be angry at someone when you don't know what they look like, right?
No, that's right. All we've got is a list of names, and there's names all over this. So there's also obviously we saw on that list that Pinball Brothers were owed a lot of money. There's also another company in Europe that's got a large sum that's owed to them that I believe is also probably one of the investors as well. So I think really what's happening here is everybody's bailing, get what you can.
Yeah.
But what is there to get? Like, if there's absolutely no money, where are you going to get it from?
I don't know. Deep root.
Just your voice, and it's like, oh man.
Yeah, we're done. Okay.
Shitstorm.
So Alien, is it a good game, Marty?
We got to play it, Ryan.
Yeah, we did. We don't know how long these games are going to kind of be floating around in Australia for. I mean, there's a couple here, maybe, I don't know, like less than 10.
Yeah, I think if I could have a wild guess, I think there's 7.
7, okay. And there's more coming. Some of the coin taker batch is heading down to Australia, and it'll probably head back to the US anyway, because I believe most of the people that are interested in the machines are in the US.
Sure.
And now this machine kind of becomes. Well, let's talk about the game, right? So,
okay.
What are your impressions of it?
So remember, we played it, nearly a year ago at Flip Out in Melbourne, and you had 2 balls, I had 1 game, and I was really surprised how much it played. I thought it was going to be an absolute stinker. And so second time around, we played it for probably 3 hours, I think. So that's enough time to have an informed view. Here's my overall impressions of it. I actually quite like the layout. I like the shots. I like how it feels. They do feel a little bit awkward, particularly the left ramp feels a bit of an unusual shot. I think you sort of mentioned as well that it's at a weird sort of angle, and that's I think that's probably because it is a wide body, and because that ramp is so far out on the left, it's at a strange angle. It sounds great. It looks great. So we were running beta code, the 1.2 code. So visually it looks good. My only... And because people keep saying, are you going to get one? Are you going to get one? Because, I wanted to trade my Hobbit for one. I'd say the only thing I really didn't like, Ryan, and that is the rules. And it's not that
I was something about to say the fact that the machine broke down like
no, well, we're not even going to get to that bit yet, because beta code, so we can put under the umbrella of that. But no, it was more so that let's elephant in the room, right? Everyone talks about the fact that Sigourney Weaver's not there, the actors aren't there, all that kind of stuff. So what it actually really does, it tries to make you feel like you're in that world, not that you're necessarily participating in the movies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
So, like one of the modes where you've got to hit the pop bumpers which have the eggs on top of it. I understand why I'm doing that. I'm trying to destroy the eggs before they hatch, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that never really made me feel like I was in a part of the film where that happened.
What more do they need to do than have like intense music, have the eggs physically on the play field turning from green to red with sound effects, clips playing on the LCD on the playfield and in front of you. Like,
Sure.
if that doesn't make you feel like you're in the movie, then what?
No.
How do you feel like you're in the movie?
It makes me feel like I'm in the alien world. It doesn't make me feel like I'm in a movie. And the parallel I will draw is Game of Thrones. Go with me on this if you can.
Oh, gosh.
So because, you know, if you think about Game of Thrones, and I think that came out, we were up to probably season 5 when that came out. So this big, long story had happened. When you're playing Game of Thrones, you're playing houses within the movie and you're not necessarily playing along the storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Yeah.
So
it's a more generic. They didn't know where it was going because the book hasn't been written yet, or still hasn't been written. So they had to make it more generic. And thinking back at it now, they actually did a really good job with what they've got because it's more generic than Walking Dead, which kind of told half the story and then it just stops.
Right. But that's what I'm saying about Alien, in that you're playing these like little sort of mini episodes, and I never really felt like I was part of an evolving story. Like I didn't really feel like I was heading anywhere.
Well, you head towards the wizard mode for that movie.
Yeah.
Like you play the 5 modes.
Yeah, I know. It felt more like I was playing a pinball machine than I was being drawn into a story. That's my take on it.
Okay. I just want to give a shout out quickly to Brian Dominy and Joe Schober, who emailed us the beta firmware because it's not out there yet. We wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the kind of the older rules and the newer rules, but some of the people on the stream that had an Alien did recognize it and were talking to us and giving us some tips. Like you, I like the layout. It's almost there. It's almost like a really good layout, but as I said, there's something wrong. I'm not sure if it's the geometry or if it's the fact that the geometry is just a little bit different than the way people normally do it. You know, like when we talk about the whole Steve Ritchie, Pat Lawler thing, like you know where the ramps are going to be.
Yeah.
And it's also that the ramps are metal, so when you get a rejection from that metal ramp that's really close, kind of like in the Shadow, it feels horrible, like the clunk. The clunk sound, and that's why I love plastic ramps. People bag plastic ramps all the time. They just feel good. They feel like the ball's gliding across, like on Walking Dead. Somehow Metallica and apparently Iron Maiden is able to make metal ramps feel really good. So layout's pretty good. Code. I think the code is like there's some really unique modes, which I like that. I like unique stuff in code and pinball machines. One of the biggest gripes to me is you can't skip animations, and that just this is the two things that drove me crazy. Is that yes, you can't skip it, but the part that they show you is like the intro, and then they flash the instructions of the mode, like, and then it spits out the ball straight away. Like it kind of draws you to the LCD screen, so you're like, okay, I'm gonna find out like any second now, and then it gives you the instructions, then chucks out the ball. It's like, give me the instructions first, and then play this stupid clip. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I mean, when we put the hat on now of how to review this game, it's like reviewing Big Bang Bar, because that's what this machine is now. This machine isn't they should do this, they should do that. Like, it's done, right? Yep. And yep. It's now like a time capsule of this failed company, and that's what I want to compare it to, right?
Sure.
Is it better than Big Bang Bar? Yes.
Yeah.
It's more fun than Big Bang Bar. If someone said, "Would you rather an Alien or a Big Bang Bar?" I'll take an Alien.
For sure.
Yeah.
I would too.
Yeah.
I would too, because I just felt like there's a lot more in it. You know, we did it. We went through the 5 modes. You get to the wizard mode, and then you move from either Alien to Aliens or vice versa.
The weapons,
multi-balls as well were great. The weapons.
Yeah. The weapons is amazing. It's like a walker bomb or whatever, but there's 5 different ones and you get to choose. So it's all about timing, and there's a lot of strategy involved with that. I don't think this is like some brilliant like the next alignment sheets kind of thing, but it's refreshing to have that kind of new code. And I think the people that have it, as long as they don't make these again by some stupid kind of licensing thing, but I think they wouldn't be allowed to make these again. I can't see them kind of going anywhere but up eventually, because that's rare, less than 200 units. It's a collector's piece now. It's not a normal pinball machine.
Yeah. So I certainly didn't I didn't put money down on it, and I'm not going to get one. But if there wasn't any of the shit that had happened, and then there's the thought about supporting it, and as you know what I'm like when it comes to supporting machines, if I was somebody that could tinker with these kinds of things, I'd be in for sure.
Yeah, I said we don't know where the thing's going with parts. As I said, apparently Pinball Brothers is going to try and make Queen, and it's going to be a funny debate, you know, like, will people just flat out reject this company and say, no, you can't just kind of wipe away the whole Alien debacle and just pretend like it didn't happen? Or, you know, is Queen going to be this amazing game that people are like, okay, I don't give a shit. Like, this is a good game and I want to play it. I guess we'll see. I don't know, whenever that comes, in a year's time from now. I don't know.
What would they have to do to restore people's faith?
Well, as I said, the theme is Queen.
Sure.
To me, Queen means a lot. To people in the UK, Queen means a lot. When you read like Pinside, people acting like Queen isn't a big thing. Is Queen not big in the US? Surely, like people recognize the genius of Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where, you know, they're a great band. They're an epic band, but are they? I don't know. Do they still have the current cachet? Like, you know, are people still like going, oh man, they are just this band that we all miss? And
well, it's like Iron Maiden, you know, like,
yeah,
there's a group of people that like them, and if it's a good pinball machine, then it's a good pinball machine. But I guess it's going to be a wide body, because that's the whole highway mantra.
Look, I guess when you see an Iron Maiden fan, they're an Iron Maiden fan. They will let you know that they're an Iron Maiden fan, generally because they will have an Iron Maiden t-shirt, right? How many people would you see walking down the street and you go, oh, there's a Queen fan?
I don't want to answer that question.
But what I guess I'm saying is that with this band, they were an amazing band, and as I've mentioned before, I saw them in 1985 live. It was my very first concert I ever went to with Freddie Mercury, and it was amazing. They were a fantastic band. They were an iconic band. I just don't know whether they have the same sort of rabid fan loyalty that other bands have.
Well, do you think like the Beatles have that fan loyalty?
Not. I don't think that there's a massive crossover in the middle of the Venn diagram between Beatles fans and pinball fans.
Well, the people that were like obsessed with the Beatles is all those screaming, freaking annoying teenagers, and they're grown up and they got say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
anyway.
We will see. We will see what happens, but yeah, that's what I think. Look, I'll answer the question that I was hoping you'd answer, and that is ultimately this company needs to come out with a great design, and they need to come out with 100 machines already built. People can buy them, no pre-order. You get your machine when it's done. I think anything less than that, people will just be way too skeptical.
Cool. Close the book. Boom. Done.
There we go.
Stern.
What's happened with Stern?
Some people are complaining about the Iron Maiden kind of having split cabinets, and we could have talked about this last week, but the episode was kind of already too long. So as about, I think around the time of Aerosmith, people's cabinets, especially on site, because people move machines on site, they're a bit more violent with those because they're paying money, they want their balls to last longer, and little tiny splits appear in the cabs. It wasn't that widespread, but you know, I mean, like these little issues, they're kind of blown up out of proportion. If 5 out of 1,000 machines kind of have it, they kind of reinforce I think Star Wars was after Aerosmith. They reinforced the cabinets. They're now back to apparently shipping the old style cabinets. I'm not sure if it was a mistake, a part shortage. We'll never know. We'll never get. This is one of those things that you never get a straight answer out of Stern. But there are some Iron Maidens that are splitting, and it's not just the pros; it's the LEs as well that don't have them. I haven't seen any pictures of split LEs, but people are installing the old style Belly Williams brackets to kind of spread the load of the pressure when the machine is moved around. Is this something, Marty, that you have given a thought to or you're thinking about doing? Because it's not that expensive to buy these brackets.
Not even a lick of thought has gone into what I'm going to do to reinforce my cabinet.
Is that because you miss a feather touch, or because you just think I'll just play it, and if it cracks, I'll just ring AMD and they'll fix it for me?
Yeah, I think so, but probably more the former. My machines are planted to the ground. The legs, whatever they are underneath, are all the way up, so you can't move the machines. I've got my tilt set on very tight, so my machines don't get moved.
Cool.
So I don't know. We'll see.
All right. What else? We got some updates.
Yes.
As I said, every week now we got like 10 updates from Stern. So the hashtag where's the code is dead, except for all the other games like Ghostbusters and stuff.
Except for Kiss and Ghostbusters and
just ignore them.
Wheel
just
of
ignore
Fortune.
Them. Wheel of Fortune. So Star Wars. There's been an update.
Yep. Big update.
Yeah, I didn't really read through anything except that the Keith Allen, I'm calling it the Keith Allen debounce settings because the Iron Maiden machine was the first machine that had the debounce. Do you know what debounce means, Marty?
Is that to do with the tilt?
Well, do you know what the word debounce means kind of just in general? Basically, when you hit a target or a switch, it kind of like it goes like, it gets pushed in and then it goes out and then it's kind of like a trampoline. Or do you remember that Simpsons episode where like he did the fat jiggle test and he Yep. So it just keeps on jiggling. So there has to be like a millisecond delay where it doesn't count twice. Like you didn't hit that switch twice, it just bounced kind of back and forth.
Sure.
So tilts have debounce settings because it doesn't want to count, like if it kind of goes around in a circle and it doesn't want to count that as two tilt warnings. So there's a millisecond delay. And with Stern, you know this, Marty, you can literally have one massive slide save per game and it'll give you two tilt warnings and depends on how it's set up.
Yeah.
So with Keith Allen's machine, Iron Maiden, there is now a debounce setting that you can change. So you can't do that anymore, I believe. It'll tilt out. The debounce setting you can adjust to be lower. When it's in tournament settings, it'll automatically be lower. That is now in Star Wars. So this might be a new thing going forward with Stern that operators or people running a tournament can now change this. If they want to.
Okay. So the only other I sort of read through the release notes as well, and probably the only other thing that I noticed that stood out was it said greatly improved catching and holding the ball in the horseshoe loop for modes like Lightsaber Duel, Hyperspace Hurry Up, and Hyperspace Multiball. So, and that's probably been one of the criticism I think that people have had, and I think isn't that like little forks that come up that sort of don't really hold the ball properly. So. That's something that needed to be improved. We probably won't go into it, but I'm curious to know how they would fix that, which felt like a physical problem with software.
Yeah, probably something to do with the
timing,
timing, or how high up it is changes the way the ball bounces. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's also new Iron Maiden codes. I think up to 0.97. Marty, is that? I don't. You probably know more.
Yeah, I think it is. And again, lots of updates. This is actually quite a big code update. And they've now the Number of the Beast wizard mode is now complete.
Is that the biggest wizard mode, or?
I think that is the final wizard mode. I really don't know the rules of it all that well.
I think Keith Allen said that there's a wizard mode that is kind of like beyond the final one, and there's no inserts or anything for it. Right, it's like a secret wizard mode. I'm guessing completing everything, but congratulations, Marty. You didn't say
I know.
Polished.
I didn't say it because you dared me to say it.
Just another spit and polish.
And nip and a tuck.
What else you got, Marty? What's happening in Brisbane at the moment?
Well, there's a thread that just started on Pinside. Admittedly, it's only had about 5 posts on it, but it's not a big
huge,
thing, but
huge news.
Huge news, but it's just interesting that the title of it is Brisbane, Australia is the pinball capital of the Southern Hemisphere. Do you think that's true, Ryan?
Well, I haven't been to all the major cities in the Lower Hemisphere, but sure, it is.
If they reckon that, they've said in a Brisbane, there's 157 machines on site.
Yeah, this is a new place I think called Pinball House, and it's opened up right next to Netherworld. Man, and Jimmy's the nicest guy ever, and he even promotes these companies. But man, if I owned a pinball, I'm just putting it out there, right, just to show you what kind of arsehole I am. if I had and spent all that money and opened up a pinball place, and someone opened up another pinball place, like literally, like 50 meters away or something, I'd be fucking pissed off.
Well, yeah, but you know what? Well, if you remember, our very first interview that we had on the Head2Head Pinball podcast was with Jimmy Nails from Netherworld, and it's not just pinball that makes his place great. He's got just a great venue that has all
100%.
the elements coming together to make a great venue, not just pinball. So,
Yes.
Other people have got to be able to create that kind of magic as well.
Well, yeah, you have to be different and offer something, that others aren't. And this guy is offering beef jerky. So instead of drinks and alcohol, beef jerky. Is beef jerky oily? I don't know.
No, I don't think so. So
dry.
what I'm hearing you say to me is that pinball plus beer plus jerky equals dollars.
Well, there's no beer, so it's just the formula, Gary, has changed. So the next time I see you at Expo, it's pinball plus beef jerky equals dollars.
Awesome.
That's it.
Yeah, so there you go. Well, but not only that with Brisbane having all those venues, but they've also got on the Gold Coast, about an hour down, they've also got those two big time zones that have got the Iron Maiden was put in there today. They usually air freight those to Australia, get them before everybody else. So. Just Queensland in general is a good place for pinball. So if anybody is coming to Australia, go to Brisbane.
Yeah. Well, if you're going for pinball, if you're going for culture, come down to Melbourne and shitty weather. It's Melbourne's. That's why our culture is so good because of the shitty weather.
Really shitty weather, and today is no exception. It really is. What else? So Ryan, would you believe me if I told you that I have done a pinball machine workshop?
Were you just texting on your phone the entire time so you wouldn't learn anything?
So this is actually a course that's put on by Norbert Sneisser. And so for those people that are in Australia, Norbert Sneisser is very well known. He was one of the first people that put on competitions in Australia, and he runs Pinball HQ and the Australian Pinball League as well. So he's just put up on Facebook, and we'll link it as well, that there's an upcoming 2-day seminar, and I have done this 2-day seminar before, Ryan.
I just don't understand, Marty.
So what you've got to understand is that it's actually quite an intense seminar. It goes for 2 days, and before I did the seminar, I wouldn't ever lift up my playfield. After doing the seminar, I now lift up my playfield. Then I call you to come over. There's a big difference. I just look. I came away from it not being scared about opening up my pinball machine and tinkering around. So if there's anything that's mechanical, I'm usually okay with that. When it comes to things like optos and boards and all that kind of stuff, I leave that to people that know a lot more than me.
Yeah, you ring me, I ring Bruce, and
yeah, that's pretty much the cycle of life. That's how it works.
So we'll link that in the show notes if anyone's interested in doing it. I think he does this maybe once a year or once every 2 years, and I've had some friends that have done it as well and come out knowing a lot more, because
certainly a lot more than me anyway.
Well, I believe he starts from the start, so really basic stuff that you might miss, and people assume that you know what an opto is and how it works, and I/O boards and lamp and switch matrices.
Right, yeah, all that kind of stuff. So to give you an idea of where it's at, you need to bring your own multimeter to the course. So if you're not going to have a multimeter, then you're going to miss what this is about.
Marty, do you play pinball on the Pinball Arcade?
I play pinball on the Pinball Arcade quite a lot, Ryan.
I've been playing it a bit more this week than normal because of the news, and I'm so bad at it that I can't even hit. I do the trial table for Paragon, and I can't even hit the fourth highest score for it to disable itself. That's how hard Paragon is. Wow. It's so hard. Anyway,
so for those people that don't know, so Pinball Arcade is digital representations of popular pinball machines from the ages that you can play on any of your smart devices, on your PC via Steam, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch. And effectively what was announced this week is that the license for Bally Williams has not been renewed.
That's okay. There's plenty of other good machines that aren't Bally Williams machines, right? Like Gottlieb's. Data East games.
Yeah, so it's a problem. It is a problem, and from what I heard, so I listened to, and I recommend everybody, listen to the latest episode, but certainly listen to this podcast anyway. It's called the Blarcade Pinball Podcast. Hi, Jared and Chris. So they actually had Bobby King, who's from Farsight Studios, on their latest podcast, and he sort of really did give the lowdown on what the situation is, and really what he said is that the license holder, I can't remember the name, look it up, everybody.
Scientific something
like that. They've decided to go in another direction with the license. What that probably means, either, whatever they have to do with this license is just worth so little that they couldn't give a shit about it, or they're going to do their own thing with it. And this company makes a lot of, the poker machines. So, maybe they'll do something.
someone have outbid them, and it seems like a lot of effort though. Like the point at which the Pinball Arcade is at now, I just remember all that stuff they had to do to get the Addams Family recreation happening,
all the Kickstarters
and they had to do Kickstarter and this and that, and then surely someone's going to start over and do all that again.
Well, yeah, I don't know. But what it means is that if you have purchased those machines before June 30, so June 30 is when the license expires, so you will no longer be able to purchase any Bally Williams machines, but any machine that you have bought before then will stay and they will support it. They are going to focus on porting over all the new Stern machines that they were released on Stern's Pinball Arcade. They're all going to come over, and they've sort of said that they're going to start focusing on recreations of other Stern machines. So that's good.
Okay. Cool.
There's Gottlieb machines. I know, as long as they're not the Gottlieb Premier ones. And do you know what? I've pretty much downloaded every single table that has ever come out, except for the last 4 Gottlieb Premier games, because they are just turds.
What platform do you have them on your PC or?
No, I have mine on iOS. So I have mine on my my iPad and my phone, but I usually play it on my iPad.
I mean, if I kind of traveled more, then I'd have them all. But whenever I feel myself kind of playing it, I mean, unless it's to kind of specifically learn the rules of a game, I just wow, why do I have $100,000 worth of pinball machines in the other room? What am I doing with my life when I can just go get up and play them?
Well, because it's obviously not the same experience. And, you're talking about Paragon before, and, obviously Paragon's a difficult game in real life anyway. But it feels unnaturally bad on Pinball Arcade. But not all the machines are like that. But it's a digital platform, so you're never going to get the nuances of all the different shot variations that you can have.
When you go down that little squiggly thing on the right on Paragon, where's the ball usually land? I guess it's per machine, but on the Pinball Arcade, it lands on the tip of the lower flipper every single time. You can't. I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway,
that's what I'm saying. You don't get the same amount of variance that you would in a real game. But also if they're going to look at Stern machines, I wonder whether they're going to look back at Stern Electronics and start releasing some of the old Stern games. They also said they want to do the Capcom games as well. Okay. But obviously, there's with newer Stern machines as well. There's the hurdle of now having to incorporate the new screen as well, so that'll be interesting to see what they do. So if you do want to know more, check out the Blarcade Pinball Podcast. That's BLAHCADE.
Or check the show notes and I'll link it directly.
Yeah, cool.
Marty, is it time for Slam, the top 100?
Yes, it is, Ryan, and I'm very excited this week to talk about it.
Are you excited, Marty, or are you dead inside?
I am excited.
Okay.
Because I won.
Yes.
I actually won. 58% of the votes went to Guns N' Roses being a better machine than Stern Star Trek. And it isn't. Not even close to being better than Stern Star Trek, but clearly I had the better argument. Isn't that what you're saying?
The begging argument? Or which?
Pretty much the one that said, don't let him win again.
Okay. That's over now, guys. That's over. Let's get back to normal, okay?
Let's do again.
I'm just checking the top 100. Where is Iron Maiden at number 12? It slid down.
Oh, no way.
Pinside Petey strikes again.
Yeah, thanks.
I got a Pinside Petey, by the way. He's on Facebook and he's sending me all these weird messages. But did we get any mail from Pinside Petey this week, Marty?
Yes, we actually did. So
I haven't listened to it.
Pinside Petey is, he's a bit annoyed that, you called him out for not giving you a rating. So
okay,
he decided to give you a rating. Would you like to hear what he said about you?
Go for it. And I'm not joking. I haven't listened to this yet.
Hey, jerks! I didn't know you were going to play my message last week. At least it was the one good thing about your stupid podcast. Hashtag first burn. It's no wonder you played it. You need someone with a good voice. Dudes, you have no right making fun of Bobbly Bobo on Guardians. Do you hear yourselves talk? Hashtag speak English. Oh, and Ryan, you want a rating from me? Here you go. Here's a 2. As in grow a pair. I can't believe my secret future girlfriend, Mrs. Pym. She totally wants me. She said you look like one of the Jonas Brothers. Yeah, if you was hit by a truck in the face. Hashtag I'm on a roll. Ryan, your doppelganger is more like Rudy from Funhouse. You got a big, stupid head, never shut up, and I so want to shove my balls right in your mouth. Pinballs, you frickin' pervert. Hashtag get your head out of the gutter and fuck off.
Oh, God. Inside PD strikes again. Iron Maiden is at number 12. It's sliding. Pin sliding all the way down.
Oh, it is
100.
pin sliding.
All right. Let's do this, Marty.
Let's go for it.
Please generate a number from 0 to 100.
Coming right up. 44.
44 is
Fishtails.
Fishtails.
Ooh, okay.
Good one.
Please generate a number from 0 to 100.
Sure. 76.
Oh, of course. Of course. A lower number than yours.
Ah, yeah.
Transformers.
Horrible. Okay.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. So, all right. That's it. 30 seconds.
Fishtails, one of Mark Ritchie's finest games. You can pick this game up super cheap. Very underrated. That's why it gets my vote for the best. Oh, shit. I hate this game. The two ramps in the middle. Left, right combo. And then, bam, you got a couple of seconds to hit it up the left orbit to get monster fish. Fast cast, multi-ball. It's chaotic. This game never drags on for too long with lightning flippers. It's a great game to play with your mates. It's a fishing theme. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Fishtails.
It's better. It's got a higher rating than Transformers, Marty.
Well, that is true.
Let me know when
You ready for Transformers?
Okay, ready, set, go.
Transformers is a great game. It's one of these ones where I don't think it really has been given the justice that it deserves. It's a great George Gomez game, and I know people sort of love them or hate them, but this is great. It's got great art. You can play as Autobots or Decepticons, right? It's got great toys in it. It's got great ramps. It's got great flow. It's got that center shot that goes up to bloody, what his name is, Megatron or whatever, and it raises. It's great. It's also got great sound. David Thiel does no wrong. This is a great game.
Beep.
Shut up.
The rebuttal's coming. You ready?
Yep.
Transformers, an absolute turd. Yes, you have the left and the right, but it's like picking between two pieces of shit, Marty, okay? The left shit, the good shit or the bad shit. You want to chop wood to the left or chop wood to the right? I agree, the sounds are amazing. That doesn't make a game. It's got a poor layout. The alley has that annoying bit that does absolutely nothing in the top right-hand corner. The most boring, uninspiring software that Stern has ever created. This makes Big Buck Hunter look like medieval madness. Boom.
So you say that.
Is this your rebuttal?
This is my
Okay,
rebuttal.
sick,
You say
go.
that, but it actually still has better code than Fishtails. Fishtails is really right ramp, left ramp, monster fish, right ramp, left ramp, blah, 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 blah. Shit, boring game. And it's got those ridiculous lightning flippers on it as well. Just ruins any type of fun you are going to have on that machine. Terrible. Hate it. Fuck off. Hate it.
This is actually an interesting topic, right? Because Transformers on paper, and this is the whole thing that I'm going through my head now with Big Buck Hunter, is it actually a shit game, or is it actually just a shit game for the time that it came out compared to what it was around it? Because Fishtails is a pretty simple game, but when it came out, that's what they were,
Yeah.
right? So how do people judge games? They judge it for the time that it came out. Addams Family, amazing game, best-selling game of all time. It's pretty boring after a while, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So we'll see how people vote. The nostalgia factor of things were simple, so it was a good game at the time, or hey, this is like the only surviving company and they released an absolute stinker. Honestly, this is not me. This is me in my honest opinion. Fishtails is more fun to play than Transformers, even though the code on Transformers might be slightly better. It is just is more boring.
No, I really don't agree. I think that the thing that probably isn't so great in Transformers' favour is I don't think the rules are as intuitive as they should be. And I know that because a lot of people that I've spoken to that play it sort of don't really know how to play it. Like, I pick Autobots or
how do you not
Decepticons.
know? You have all the guys there, and you hit those shots a bunch of times until you start that shot.
Yeah.
That is the epitome. That's what, like, I think I heard it today on the Pinball podcast with Jeff and Jessica Donato, and he was saying that Lyman kind of pioneered that movement away from that. Like, you don't just kind of hit shots over and over again until something happens. That's what shit code is. That's like, people have moved on from that. And that came out in 2011, and it still had that crap.
Yeah, well, if Monster Bash comes out, people are going to say, "Oh, I love the fact that you do these shots and that lights up a mode or whatever." It just depends. It's one of these things where people either like it or they don't, right? I think the problem with Transformers, I know we're probably still going on about these machines. The biggest problem that Transformers had at the time was, I think it was one of those games where it was made when Stern were really struggling to survive, and so the build quality suffered a lot. So whenever you saw these on location, 9 times out of 10 they were broken.
Okay, I've always played them on a home use only, and they play well. Just like Avengers, I just like plunge the ball and I'm bored 10 seconds later.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and again, that's another George Gomez from the Stern years. I just think it's one of those layouts that people either like or they don't.
George Gomez made Lord of the Rings, so he can produce as many turds as I think they're turds, and I'll give him a pass for Lord of the Rings. He's never going to come on the show, but
lifetime membership.
I'm sorry, George Gomez, if you're listening. Okay, so we'll put that up on Facebook tomorrow, I guess. So it's usually Monday or Tuesday, and you can vote for who won.
This Week in Pinball.
Brought to you by Jeff from This Week in Pinball.
What happened this week?
Did we miss anything this week in pinball? The Munsters apparently going to appear at TPA next year. Okay, that's right. It was some guy that was on like used to feature in the Munsters. Had a website with all these details, and it was removed. Like everything is kind of removed after Stern tells people not to leak their information. And he's going to appear at TPF. So does that mean that the Munsters is maybe going to get delayed and revealed in TPF, or does that mean that they're just going to be celebrating it there and have that guy make an appearance? Who knows? Apparently, it's meant to come out this year. What else?
So Deep Root, they've released their price range anywhere from $3,500 up to $50,000.
That's a pretty big range.
That's quite the range, isn't it?
Can you imagine, like, I've got a deep root pinball machine, which one, the shit one or like the one that's like plated in gold?
So I love this quote. He says, this is from Robert Mueller. He says, $3,500 might be a little expensive for our low end. We wouldn't feel comfortable taking that much profit. As for the upper end, Kaneda keeps insisting that he wants to buy a pinball machine for $50,000. So we would like to give him the opportunity to do so.
Fuck, that's gold.
He's
gone up in my books.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, okay, Marty, if someone was offering you a new pinball machine for $3,500, how much of the pinball machine do you think you'll get? Do you think that includes the legs and no, I'm serious, like the legs, the bracket, the LCD, the back box,
or is it just a replacement playfield?
Or is it like less than a replacement playfield? Is it like half of a playfield? Is this like P3?
I don't know, man. If they could do a fully fledged pinball machine for $3,500, game over. There it is. But that's pretty ambitious, don't you reckon?
Well, okay, if a machine is that cheap, then a lot of operators will start saying, "Hey, like if this earns money, then I can, I can put it out on sale." Like to buy a Pro in Australia, like the cheapest model Stern is like $8,500.
Yeah.
So yes, there's a return on investment. Yes, it holds its value. But if you're talking about the amount of capital that you need to have, say, 50 machines on site if you're a big operator, that's 50 times $8,500 versus 50 times $3,500. So
which would probably be about $5,000, maybe $6,000 here.
Sure. What I'm getting at is that you can put more out and make more money.
Sure, that's right.
It's not a good business model to be putting super LEs or 50-gram pinball machines on site. So it's a lot of talk. It's a lot of hot air. We'll see what happens when it actually happens.
Yeah. So, yeah. As I said, they just need to bring a great product. I don't care what they're pricing it at, whether it is $3,500 or $50,000. Just make it a good theme, make it a good game, make it work, make it play well. Then you can put whatever price you want on it. All right, so let's talk about this week in pinball. What did we do together, Ryan?
We streamed Alien. We
met up at your place on Friday night?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's a guy, Andy, came from interstate and wanted to do a pinball kind of pub crawl, and I told him to start at my house. This guy's really nice. He brought over apple pie. It was so freaking good.
Oh my god, best apple pie ever.
Now we got into almost like a bit of an argument, Marty. Do you want to repeat what was said on Friday night, if you remember, about Lord of the Rings? Because you did something that you usually don't do, and you read a rule sheet on Lord of the Rings.
I did read a rule sheet because you had mentioned, I don't know whether it was last week or the week before, that my rule knowledge on Lord of the Rings is not great, and you were absolutely spot on. It's not been great, so I decided to read up just to understand. I read the entire rule sheet, like literally word for word, but it was all too much for me. So I then sort of looked around and looked at some strategies that people gave. So I had a much better understanding of what I needed to do with that machine. So I'm glad I did.
And then you came to my house
and you've absolutely destroyed that machine. You have taken every essence of fun that game has. So, George Gomez, just cover your ears because I'm going to tell you what he's done to your machine. You have made it so not fun to play. Okay. That's my point. What did you do to it, Ryan? Tell everyone what you've done to it.
I totally removed the outlanes.
Sure.
Right, so that the post isn't there.
Yep.
not a problem if you hit your shots, and it's a fan layout, so you have like 4 shots that return perfectly to the flipper, or 5 shots if you include the VUK in the middle. What else did I do? I changed the first 2 multi-balls to a harder settings, so you don't just kind of get given and handed a multi-ball and just sit there and backhand the right ramp over and over again on easy settings. So I made it fair so that all multi-balls are as equally hard to get into. Now, Marty, this is not Star Trek. You can't just flail and you'll hit one of the like 6 shots that are available in the game, by Steve Ritchie. And I feel like I almost... You said you're making this game, you're designing it for Jordan Treadaway and Richard Rhodes, and that's it. And I included myself in that because I had to go after you.
But it's your machine.
Yeah. And then what happened is after you left, I sat there and kind of talked with Stacey about strategies and what to do. And he struggled for a little while, like you were. And then he put up a 70 million or so. Yeah. So he learnt how to play the game. So...
But people are coming to your place for a tournament. They're not necessarily going to have that amount of time. And also, Stacey Borg is also a really good player.
I understand, but if I make them easy, then everyone has a good time, and we're there for 15 hours.
I'm not saying that you need to make them easy, but I think it's almost like a case of, a little bit more. Nope, too salty, take it back. You've just gone that little bit extra where it's like, okay, now it's not fun anymore. You just need to turn it back a little.
Big Buck Hunter on default settings will have shorter ball times than my Lord of the Rings that's bastardized.
Okay.
So what does that say? Does that say that Big Buck Hunter isn't fun?
Look, and I was being critical because it wasn't fun, and I'd read the rules and I was hoping to have a great game. I just think it's one of these interesting things where I understand that you've got to set machines up for competition mode, and when it is a really serious tournament, you've probably got to do that. But, I just say consider the audience that's coming along, and not everybody's going to be elite.
Well, that's my objective of the tournament, is to make people more elite. And, with the machines that everyone else is playing on site, there's a competition going on right now at, in Northcote. I mean, those machines have like some of them don't have a tilt bob on properly, and you can smash the machine around, and that's not teaching anyone anything except for to be rough with games.
Sure.
And then they go to ACS, the Australian Championship, and they get smashed.
Yeah.
Because the people in Queensland set up their machines properly.
I know.
So,
but if you remember, good friend of the show Bowen, he said, as tournament director, you should be making it as fun for a new person that hasn't played before as well as the elite.
Well, that's why
to Bowen?
I am listening to Bowen, because I did Pinburg style, where people are grouped together in the same thing. It's just instead of there being 800 people, there's only like 30.
I know.
Anyway, it's happening this week. I bet you if you win, Marty, you'll say, yeah, it was awesome. That's keep them that way. If you finish out of the top 4, well, you're a perfectionist, Marty. If you don't finish first, you're going to be upset, right? If you finish second, it's a loss.
Yeah, that's right.
There is a big competition happening this week in Coolangatta. Yes. The Cooley Classic. There'll be, I think, 60 or 70 Aussies there. The New York Pinball Championship is going to be happening, and Rage Tilts at Rises version 2. I will take your feedback on board, Marty, and I will consider maybe doing that whole best game thing, like your 4 best games count towards it, and that way people can just keep on going back and back and back to the same game within a certain period. Maybe that works better as an introduction to my pinball machines.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what we did this week.
We also had a pinball meet on Saturday night.
Yep, it was at a guy called Glenn's house. I did a little Facebook Live video. I brought my wife along, Chanel, and it's probably the last time I'm going to bring her to a pinball meet. Yeah, I don't know. Pinball meets, I mean, as much as I want them to be kind of, there are females there, but the females that are there kind of have been there for a while, and they kind of get like slowly, brought into it, and they're kind of one of the guys, so to speak. But my wife just kind of was, it's like this crowded space with like guys kind of like screaming and drinking beer, and it's not her, she's an introvert anyway, but it's not really her scene. So I didn't hang around for too long, but it was an amazing meet. The food there was amazing.
Yeah.
The guy's a chef.
It was amazing.
Yeah. What did you get up to, Marty, this week?
Well, besides that, there really was only one other thing that was in my life, and that was Eurovision, obviously, Ryan. And
Yes.
you were into it as well. So we should have been on Saturday and Sunday. We should have been out, playing more pinball. Instead, I think it might have been Saturday. We were watching Eurovision at the same time, commenting on all the acts. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is that I was talking to somebody today about Eurovision, because it's what we do. And someone said, you know what? I'd mentioned a while ago about the whole notion of, what would be a good band theme that's not a rock band.
Okay.
I'm just going to put this out there because I'm not going to shut this person down. But they said B-52s.
As in Love Shack?
As in Love Shack, Rock Lobster, Rome. I can't remember what it is. But I was just thinking about it because their visual style is very colourful. It's very sort of 50s, 60s Atlanta type cool. And you could do sort of themes based around their songs. It would be quite an interesting pin. I don't think it would necessarily sell all that well, but I just like the way that somebody was thinking about a rock band having their own pinball. B-52s, that would have been good back in the day, the 80s, having a B-52s pinball machine.
50 miles to the Love Shack. My dad used to play that over and over again.
Come on. You could just see it happen. Rome multi-ball, where you've got to roam around the world. Come on, guys. This thing would just write itself.
I love when people think of a theme, and I'm guilty of doing this, and you just name anything from that theme and just put multiple afterwards. The Goonies, Truffle Shuffle multi-ball. Don't you get it? It's the Truffle Shuffle, the thing you love, plus multi-ball. You like pinball? Truffle Shuffle, Truffle Shuffle. I'm doing it right now, Marty. Truffle Shuffle. Anyway, Truffle Shuffle. If they ever make a Goonies pinball machine, it's Truffle Shuffle Switch Frenzy. Okay, and every time you hit a switch, he does the shuffle. Okay, it's not a multi-ball.
Yep.
Anyway, Eurovision. I picked my winner, and I was wrong. I think you picked it, Marty. Did you pick Israel?
Israel. That was the one I wanted to win. Yeah, she was great.
It's really weird because I'm still listening to the music, and certain other songs like the Austrian song really growing on me, and it's just. Yeah, it's some songs that
I know this is not pinball, guys, but the Eurovision this year, because this is one of the things, right? Remember, Ryan and I didn't know each other, and the only thing that we really had in common was pinball. We've now got something else that's in common, and that's our love of Eurovision. And I'm just putting it out here, Ryan. I reckon this year, probably the best standard Eurovision has had in years.
Yeah, since 2009. 2009 was a benchmark year, but. Yeah, there's some songs that you instantly like that by the time the song contest is finished, you don't like it anymore. By the way, Marty, did you know that people in America don't know what Eurovision is?
Yeah, no, I expect that people in America don't know what Eurovision is. Although there was that whole Deadpool 2 thing where they sort of called it out. And the thing that's probably going to be really weird is that, this is a song contest that happens in Europe and Australia is in it.
Yeah. And I said to my wife, if Australia somehow wins and they hold it here, I don't care what city it's in, I'm going. Because I've been watching this thing since I was 2 years old. It's a family tradition. Anyway, what did I do this week? I rebuilt my Metallica flippers. It literally, you had to hit the shots to hit the ramps really accurately. And I refuse to believe that my flippers needed a rebuild because it was a home use only, had maybe 2,500 players on it. I replaced the core stops and the core sleeve, and it feels like a brand new pinball machine. So I need to do that for my Star Trek. Probably won't do it before the competition, and maybe Simpsons or some of the other games. I think all my machines deserve $15 each just to feel brand new again.
Right, okay.
I headed to Jared's today. I'm totally over pinball at the moment. I've got to do nothing between now and the competition next week. But I headed over there because I've never been over his house, and we played some Belly's Strikes and Spares, one of my favorite pinball machines for my youth.
We know all about that.
I forgot that the two women on the back, sitting down on the back glass, have even bigger boobs than the main chick.
Sure, okay.
Yes, but I was reminded of that today. Yep. And
awesome.
he's got amazing machines, and he beat me on Strikes and Spares, which was the final game, and he won 3-2.
Yeah.
What do we got, Marty? We got the mailbag. Well, we got some feedback. We asked last week about mechs that are super interesting, that are kind of like all-in-one mechs, and Dave Mackay messaged me and said that we left out the Theatre of Magic trunk.
Yeah.
Which is, I totally forgot about that. Yep, John Papaduke, brilliant design.
He's a great guy.
We also got an email from Ezra, and he suggested a new kind of segment we can have.
Yeah,
we will do that.
Yeah.
We will do that when we don't interview someone and we don't have a 3-hour podcast.
when we need to do it, basically. So yeah, it's a great idea though. So thank you, Ezra.
Competition winner. We put it up on Facebook, and the R geometry was winning by a lot.
Yep.
And then the whole social media thing came into play. Power of social media came in, and the gagging for the translite came away with the win. I believe his wife posted, "Can you please vote for this?" And people that have no idea what it's about just blindly voted for him. And these are the rules that we set, and he was one of the only people that actually followed the 10-second rule thing anyway. So it's all just a bit of fun. Probably not the best sound out there, and I'm sure everyone will agree. Well, almost everyone. But he wins because that's the rules. I don't know. Maybe we should do the whole Eurovision thing where it's like there's a jury vote,
yes,
and then there's and we can split it up. I don't know.
Yeah.
We do have a lot of other stuff to give away. We've got the dialed-in headbox decals, the dialed-in full decals signed by Jersey Jack. A new one that was donated today by Jared Mendoza is a Star Wars Pro Translite from Stern. All this stuff, and you've still got a whole bunch of the critical hits cards.
I do, and I've also got a Game of Thrones translite here that will be up for a prize soon.
Is that the one in your Skype picture?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Cool. So we should probably do that before Pinburg, just in case someone from the US wins, because we're not shipping it to you guys in the US. If you win, someone will have to pick it up from Pinburg. We're not spending $100.
I might just going to have like a second suitcase just full of all these prizes.
Well, one little tube. One little tube is fine.
Yeah,
you can shove it up your ass, buddy. Anything else? Are we done?
I think we're done. I think it's now time for me to spend 3 or 4 hours editing this.
Fucking Zombie Yeti.
I think it's more than just Zombie Yeti tonight.
All right.
Where can people find us, Ryan?
Head2headpinball.com. Bam.
That's all you need to do. Hey.
Email us, head2headpinball@gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram,
all that kind of stuff. So, are you going to sing me out your favourite song from Eurovision this week?
I wasn't planning to, but I can give you the stupid winner, that stupid song. I'm not your toy, not your toy, you stupid boy, stupid boy. Yeah. You know what my little kid calls her?
What's that?
Sushi Chicken Lady. Because every time we go to a sushi store, they have that golden cat thing, whatever it's called, in the background.
Yep.
She's like, she looks like a sushi lady, Daddy. And my 3-year-old calls the
Cypress?
The Cypress girl glitter vagina. So, yep.
I can understand why.
Cool.
Great.
There we go.
Great way to end the show. Thanks, everybody. Speak to you soon.
Yeah, need to get classy. Oh, fuck.